that isn't an argument. You're right, of course. Feelings aren't arguments. However, my limited knowledge of psychology is that the unconscious mind is doing a lot of work in the background, crunching through data at a much higher speed than the conscious mind is able to. And when the unconscious arrives at a conclusion, this may be presented as a feeling or an intuition. This could be an experienced electrician who can just point to a wall and know the problem is behind it, or a football quarterback that knows he has to throw the ball right now. I've always pictured your unconscious as a savant who is hogtied and gagged in the trunk of your car, and his only way of getting a message to you is to bump his head on the back of the seats. When you ask someone to tease out why they believe what they do, you often uncover incorrect data or assumptions. But my question is regarding what value you think having a feeling or an intuition about something might have both generally and in philosophy in particular. That's from Scott.
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good. Yourself?
I'm fine. I feel that most times it bothers me because people aren't being very honest about what they feel. They're trying to take a shortcut. Like, I feel that you're wrong. It's like, that's not a feeling, that's a thought, right? And like, if somebody says to me, you're wrong, then we would expect them to prove it or get lost, right? But if somebody says, well, I just feel that you're a jerk, like, that's not a feeling. So if people are genuinely communicating their feelings, I don't really have a problem with it. But if they try to wrap a non-argument in the mantle of feelings, then I will tell them that's not valid, right? Like, if somebody says, I feel sad, I'm not going to say, that's not an argument. It's like, no, that's an honest statement of how you feel. But if somebody says, I feel sad that you're such a jerk and you're wrong, it's like, no, that's not how feelings work, and that's not what they're for. So your feelings aren't arguments. Now, if somebody calls in and says, I feel something and I'm not sure what it means, then great, we'll have that conversation. I mean, I do that with myself sometimes as well. But if somebody comes in and starts talking about their feelings in a manipulative way, that is not going to fly. That is not going to fly. Feelings, a feeling of unease, a feeling of concern, and all of this kind of stuff is very important. And it's a starting point for wisdom. It's a starting point for figuring something out. Like, I felt uneasy for years about the objective explanation of ethics. And because I felt uneasy about it for years, and I kept returning to it in my mind, like you're missing a tooth and your tongue keeps going back there. And so because of that unease, I really, really wanted to go back and figure things out from the ground up, which is where my free book, Universally Preferable Behavior, A Rational Proof of Secular Ethics, available at freedomainradio.com/free, came from. And for those interested in more of my thoughts and feelings about thoughts and feelings, I have a book called Real-Time Relationships, The Logic of Love. It's free, also available at freedomainradio.com/free. So for me, feelings are very, very important as a stimulant to thought, but they are not a substitute for thought. And that is a very, very important, I think, distinction for people to have. And so if somebody comes and says, I'm uneasy about this, or I don't like this, or I feel this way about something, fantastic. I think we've had on this show many, many times great conversations about that. So the fact that you feel uneasy, the fact that you feel sad, the fact that you feel anxious or depressed or whatever, very, very important. Again, assuming there's no underlying physical cause or whatever it is, some, testosterone deficiency or something, then it's an important signal from your unconscious to start looking at something. It means your unconscious is probably processing a risk to you that is probably being covered up by your conscious mind or by people around you.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, right. I'm just agreeing with you.
So when I go to a restaurant, like these calls are for falafels. These calls are for philosophy. In the same way that when you go to a restaurant, you don't want the chef to just dump a bunch of ingredients on your table and say, enjoy. It's like, no. Those are ingredients. Those aren't the dish. Those aren't the meal, right? I don't want you to just walk up a cow to me and say, here's some cherry dynamite, go to it, right? And so when people come, if they have ingredients and they don't know what to make, like I have these feelings, but I don't know what the dish is, so to speak, then sure, let's talk about the ingredients and figure out what dish can be made. But if people come with me and they think that their ingredients are the dish, that their feelings are some kind of argument, then we have a complete disconnect. And that's what I have to push back on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're doing is you're distinguishing between feelings as an argument versus a feeling of something that the person isn't able to vocalize.
Yeah,
Verbalize.
like if you the football quarterback knows he's got to throw the ball, knows right now. There is something in sports, having done a lot of sports in my life, there's something in sports that's very important, which is you train and you train and you train, and then you forget you're training. And you just have to then be in the moment and assume that your training is going to work. So the quarterback has done a lot of practice and a lot of training. He doesn't just throw the ball where he feels like. His feelings or his instincts or his intuitions are trained by 10,000 plus hours, countless years of practice. So he doesn't just throw based on a feeling, because everyone can do that. I mean, a 2-year-old can throw based on a feeling. He throws based upon his finely tuned instincts that have been trained for years and years.
And his instincts would include things like he knows how often the defensive coach orders a rush and stuff like that. You're including all that.
Right. And so the defense, like let's say he does a really bad throw, right? He throws away from the guy who could have caught it and gets caught by the other team. It doesn't do him much good to say, but my instincts or my feelings told me to throw it there because they're wrong. And so feelings are a great place to start. I mean, there are stories of people who've had scientific breakthroughs by thinking of a snake. Like one guy figured out the structure of an atom by having a dream about a snake eating its own tail. So he had this vivid experience, snake eating its own tail, but he didn't go to a presentation at Science and say, look, here's a picture of a snake eating its own tail. I'm a scientific genius. It was the beginning of his process of trying to figure out what the dream might have meant, how it might have given him. And it could have been complete coincidence. I mean, it's not like we know the structure of things, but, you know, maybe it had an intuition based upon his research. And so having a feeling is fine, and it's a good place to start. And it can help focus you on what's important. But having a feeling is like having an ambition. People say, well, I have this ambition to be an entrepreneur. Okay, well, maybe we can get you started or figure out the right way to approach this or whatever. But the feeling is not the achievement. The ambition is not the achievement. The desire is not the training. And so people who start and end with their feelings aren't really going anywhere productive. In fact, I think they're wasting a lot of their own time and, in particular, other people's time, perhaps even in this very call, this very show. But it's a fine place to start. It's important for self-knowledge, but it is not philosophy. It is a starting place or a stimulant to philosophy, but feelings are not philosophy, which doesn't mean there's no philosophy of feelings, so to speak.
Right, and that's kind of I understand that, and I like hearing you say that. I guess the reason I was thinking about it was because so often I've heard, and I mean, obviously I don't have the training in philosophy that you have, but where the person will say, I feel that, and what they're trying to do is get out an unformed idea, and you tell them that it's not an argument, and you move on rather than teasing it out. And you have a couple of times.
No, I'm teasing it out. If they're presenting feelings as an argument, I have to tell them that's not an argument, not because I want to shut them down, but because I actually want to talk about their feelings, not their feelings masquerading as an argument. Like how many times when somebody says, Steph, I just feel that you're mistaken. And I say, that's not a feeling, mad, sad, bad, and glad, or, whatever it is it's going to be, right? And then I say, well, what were you feeling? Not what is your intellectualization about it? So when somebody says, I feel something, I say it's not an argument. That's not because I want to shut them down and have them not feel. It's because I want them to actually feel and not intellectualize their feelings in a pseudo-argument.
Right. Yeah. I've never heard you explain it to somebody like that before. So I didn't see that as what you were doing. Although there was one other example, actually, it was the first time I ever listened to you. The woman said, I feel like you said, and what she was trying to verbalize. Well, what she was trying to verbalize was what she'd inferred from what you had said. And that you shut her down.
No, it's a straw man. People say I feel so they don't have to prove. I got the impression that you said this, or my understanding, or my perception was, it's like, no. Do the work, look the damn thing up, and get a fact or two in your head. Like that's to me is just intellectually lazy and insulting and a time waste. My time is very precious to me. I do, and this is not about you, Scott, but just in general, my time is very precious to me. You know, when my daughter's hanging onto my leg saying, can we do something fun? And I'm going down to do a show. That's in my head, people. I could be spending time with my family, my friends. I could be going to play badminton. I don't know. It could be cutting my toenails. Occasionally I end up with these grizzly bear claws that allow me to dig for roots and climb trees with just a clatter, clatter, clatter. But my time is valuable. And everyone knows it's a philosophy show. Everyone knows that you need to bring some reason and evidence. Everyone has time to prepare. You know, the waiting list to come on this show is ridiculous. I mean, this is like, we're close to like, son, now that I'm on my deathbed, I need to pass down to you my prized and precious possessions. Here is my baseball collection. Here is my collection of Commodore 64s. And here is my invitation to be on the Free Domain Radio call-in show. I couldn't make it because I am only mortal, but this I pass to you, my son, and in time, should you not end up on the Free Domain Radio call-in show, you will have the chance to pass it along to your son, and so on down the line. I mean, this is a big, big wait to get on the show. So people have lots of time to prepare. So look up some facts, build some arguments, read some books. And so people who don't do that, who just call in and think that their feelings are just all they need. Don't need any facts. Just sentiment, sympathy, emotion, compassion, feels. No, like you have time to prepare. This is a philosophy show. I don't do that. I speak passionately, but I try to make arguments. I mean, the arguments can be informed by passion, and it's important to not just have good arguments, but to present them in a way that is compelling to people. But no, I don't. When people have they have long time to prepare for these shows. They know what the standards are, and if all they do is come wading in with their, Steph, I just feel that you're wrong, or I feel you said this, or it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to have a huge amount of patience because there are other people who are going to actually respect my time and respect the time of my listeners by reasoning. I don't want all the calls to end up being, here's how you deal with people who don't have any arguments, because, that's kind of boring for the listeners after a while and for me. And so, there are times when I'll push back on the people who come in and say, well, I just feel you said this about illegal immigrants. It's like, what did I? Well, no, I felt you did. It's like, come on. I mean, you had a long time to prepare. If you heard about it, you could go back and you could get the quote and you could read it back to me. Some people do that, and I really respect that. I mean, that's a very, very helpful thing to do. But I don't have time. I mean, when you hear how people come back with what you say, if you're a sort of public intellectual, and people come back to you and but you said this, it's like, when? I don't know. I just had that impression. I don't know. I thought you did. I don't know. Come on. I mean,
well, you don't always have time to do the research while you're actually on a live call-in show. I mean, in this particular case, I think. Well, your caller call in. I mean, in the
you've got a long time to prepare.
No. Well, I mean, except if you're having a conversation and then something comes up that during the call that you're just trying to recall from a previous conversation that you couldn't possibly have known was going to come up.
Well, if they give me quotes about myself, then I can go and listen to myself in context and I can prepare. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention with regards to thoughts and feelings?
No, thanks for coming.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate your call.
Cheers.